All right, hello again, everybody. Welcome back to another episode here of our Ultimate Fitness Club. So today we're going to be covering some boxing techniques. I do a lot of boxing in my own life. You know, I wrestled in high school, and I really love martial arts. So it's really something that's good for you physically, mentally. It helps you kind of develop new neural connections, and it helps you just kind of connect your mind to your body and really develop skills and kind of just get stronger and get good cardio in. So what we're going to do today is just a very basic little workout. And you can see I'm wearing my sweater, jeans, and boots. Normally I'm wearing workout clothes, but just to show you guys that you can really do this anywhere as long as you kind of have some space to move around. That's why martial arts and things like that are so effective, is because you can really practice them anywhere if you put your mind to it. There's always principles that you can be applying. So before we get started, I'm going to get you guys to say warm up or something. Maybe do 3 minutes or 2 minutes of jump rope, or if you'd like to do, say, jumping jacks alternating with butt kicks and high knees, you can do that too. Get your blood pumping, get your blood moving, and yeah, so get warmed up and then we'll get started with this. All right, to start off with here, for our actual part of the workout here, I'm going to set a 2-minute timer, and for those first 2 minutes I'm going to we're going to do 4 rounds of 2 minutes each, so that'll be 8 minutes total. And we're going to have a minute of rest in between, so I'm going to be talking during that time, and I'm just going to show you guys a few things. So I'm going to get my timer started here. 10 seconds, prepare yourself. So the most important thing in boxing, first of all, is your stance. So I'm going to show you guys that real quick. So if you're if you're right-handed like I am, right hand is my dominant hand. You're gonna put your left foot forward. Now, if you're left-handed, your right foot's gonna go forward. So whatever your dominant hand is, your opposite foot's gonna go forward. Now, I'm just gonna demonstrate normally with my left foot forward. So my left foot is gonna point towards my opponent at all times. My right foot, I'm gonna kind of hide it. And I kind of want to make a line from my toe to my back heel, and you kind of want them to be on either side of that line. So when I'm here, you kind of want to bend your knees a little bit, almost like you're squatting into your position. And you really want to make sure you're keeping that back heel off the floor. Because if you ever get caught on your back, they say don't get caught on the back foot, it's because of that. If your weight's here, you can't move anywhere and you're stuck. So the biggest thing in boxing is being able to first your stance. So get your feet here, almost think of it like an L shape, an L here. And then your guard is the next and most important thing. So you got to keep your hands up. So what I like to do is pretend I'm holding onto a shelf that's right by my eyes here. I grab onto that shelf, my elbows hang straight down to guard my ribs so I can move. So all you're going to do here, you're going to bring your guard up, and you're going to get used to moving. Now, whichever direction you're moving, that foot's going to lead. So if I'm moving forward, this foot moves first. So I step forward like that. If I want to step backwards, my back foot moves first. If I want to move left foot. If I want to move right foot. And I'm pushing off with the opposite leg. So it's kind of strange to get used to, because you're used to kind of walking. It's a very different kind of movement. This, you don't want to cross your feet. You don't want to cross your legs like that. You don't really want to be moving like this. You want to keep your stable base, and by keeping your stance secure, you're going to be able to have better balance, basically. So if I square up here in front of my opponent, you kind of want to blade your hips a little bit. They call that. So you turn your hips to kind of present a smaller target here. Get your hands up in your guard, and when you're moving, practice moving forward and backward, lunging forward, lunging backward, side to side, go to the right, go to the left. So there's a timer there. That was 2 minutes. And so what you can do at home is, find a timer, set a timer for 2 minutes, and just practice moving around. What really helps me is, all right, so what really helps me with my movement drills is to have an object on the floor in front of me. Now, normally I use my water bottle just because it's whatever I have with me. But I just grabbed this small dumbbell here from the shelf, and we're going to use that. So what I do is I like to have this as kind of just a point to move around. So if you had an opponent in front of you, you kind of want to consider that their lead toe. So that's what I like to do. So I like to pretend that's my opponent's lead foot. So I can imagine now a whole person standing in front of me. So when I'm moving, if I want to move this way, I imagine myself moving in, I move to the outside and rotate. You can do any kind of thing that you like. And a lot of what shadow boxing does for you is it helps you mentally, because you have to visualize an opponent standing in front of you, and you have to find ways to imagine yourself attacking openings as well as them attacking back, so that you can incorporate defense. So for a basic movement drill for right now, all I'm going to say is put something in front of you. Small object, can be a water bottle, can be a kettle or a kettlebell like I have here. And just go ahead and get used to moving around. Get used to moving in circular motion, which is not something people are used to, but moving around like this, used to stepping out to the side. And remember to always keep that front foot pointed towards your opponent. So anytime you're moving, your front foot stays pointing right through your opponent. So before you throw any punches, you have to get used to moving. And yeah, so get used to moving your feet and stay light. Make sure you're keeping your back heel off the ground. That's the biggest thing. You want to be on the balls of your feet, squatted a little bit to keep your weight balance right. You just move around. Just moving forward, rotate, get used to moving backwards, left side to side. Just kind of warm up with that. Now we'll get started on the next round. All right, so now that we've got our stance, we kind of figured out how to move, right? Of course, it doesn't come naturally right away. It's kind of an awkward movement, but keep working on it, you'll get it. So the first punch we're going to learn is called the jab. Now, the jab is your most important punch. So it's called number 1. You hear people say the old 1-2. That just is a numbering system to refer to which punches are which. So the number 1 punch, the best punch, the most important punch is the jab. And it looks like this. So your lead hand is the one over your lead foot. And all you're going to do with this punch is it's going to come straight out and then come straight back in. Now this one's so important because it will be the foundation of when you're boxing or if you're doing any kind of fighting style, you're going to have to build off of certain punches. And usually your lead hand is your weak hand, so your power hand is in the back. So this one's usually faster. So you want to keep this one light. You want to be able to pump it out anytime you're moving from any angle. So basically the mechanics of this punch go like this. So when you're in your stance, you want to keep your guard up here. And basically you want to pretend that you're holding like a stick with a rope tied around it in your hand. And the rope's coming right out of the middle of your knuckles here. And imagine that I'm standing across from you. If I pull that rope, your hand's naturally going to come straight out and straight back in. So, and the other thing to remember too is a punch isn't fast because it reaches the target fast. It's fast because it comes back quickly, right? So make sure you're always protecting yourself at all times. And when you throw your punch, you want to throw it straight out and come straight back in. And another little thing that helps me with mine too is imagine that I'm holding a cup out. So if I have like a mug, like drinking coffee in the morning, I'm holding that cup here and I want to dump it out. So that little extra rotation kind of flicks the punch out and you turn your knuckles over. That brings that shoulder up to cover your chin. And you want to keep your elbow in as well. So you want to have a straight line from your shoulder to your knuckles. You want to aim with these 2 big knuckles right here. So if I come over here, just beside the bag, a little drill you can do to help yourself kind of keep your punch form is you can put your foot right up next to the wall here, square your shoulders up, get your guard up, and just practice throwing that punch, but don't let your elbow touch the wall. You go out and come back in, like that. Another little thing that helps me remember to keep my hips moving too, because hip movement is one of the biggest things, is when I'm throwing my jab, I pretend I'm pulling a bow and arrow. If you've ever seen anybody pull a bow and arrow, they load up their arrow and they come back like this. It's that kind of, that extension of the shoulders and that turning of the hips that gets you that power. So it's the same thing when I'm throwing my jab. If I throw the punch here, I want to keep this hand on my face because I want to keep my guard up at all times, but I'm here and I extend. That's going to get you all the shoulder up for defense, as well as extending your arms all the way out. If I just throw from here, I only have so much range. If I extend my body and turn my hips into it, not only am I going to get more snap and power, I'm going to get more distance out of it. So for the next round of the workout here, I'm going to get you guys to do 2 minutes. And now when you're doing your movement, I want you guys to try, as you move forward, every time you take a step with this front foot, do the jab as well. So pretend you got a rope tied to your hand, to your foot. And every time this foot moves, this hand's gonna move. So if you're here, you're standing still, you step and jab. Move around, move around, move around, step and jab. Move around, step and jab. So anytime you step forward, this punch comes out. Step forward, that punch comes out. So this one's really important too, because you can use it against your opponents in a lot of ways. I'm just gonna come over here and show the bag. If this is someone in front of me, what this is really good for is getting it in their face to blind them so that you can follow up with something else, especially when you're wearing gloves. So as a boxer, when you have these big gloves on, you kind of get in your face, and if you can get it in someone's face, and they can't see, and you can hit them with something more important. It doesn't have to be a powerful punch, and it doesn't have to be anything that you're kind of throwing your back into, because you want it to be fast. So yeah, so do 2 minutes, and get used to moving around, and every time that footsteps, you got a rope tied here, so you have to move that fist. So keep moving around, keep jabbing, and get used to that movement. When you're done, pump out 5 push-ups, and then we'll get started with the next round. All right, so the next punch we're going to cover real quickly here is the number 2 punch, which is your cross. It's referred to as a cross. It's also referred to as a straight, and it's arguably one of your most powerful punches, just due to the way your body works and the way the mechanics of the punch work. So usually, now again, I referred to this earlier, the old 1-2 is the 1 and 2. So with my jab hand, this is the 1, like I said here, you follow with that string, and now that my feet are kind of spread apart, I want to follow that up and use that kind of forward kinetic motion to twist my hips forward and throw this one out. And it's almost like throwing a baseball, where you're kind of throwing like that, and you see how as I throw naturally, I turn my body and turn my hips over. That turning of the hips is what's going to get you all your power and all your speed. So for the 2 punch, or your cross or your straight, whatever you want to call it, just right hand, it looks something like this. So depending on where you're throwing from, we're just going to go from a neutral stance here. So imagine I'm all squared up, my opponent's in front of me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start not with the punch, but I'm going to start with turning my foot. And I'm going to rotate. You see how I have my foot pointing this way right now? It's going to turn this way. I'm going to point it this way. And that turning jerks my hips over. Takes my hips from here very quickly to here. And all my weight comes from in the middle to over this foot. So, as I'm here, and get used to turning that hip over. Flick that foot out and turn your hips. That's the most important part of the punch. Not actually throwing the punch itself, but the turning of the hips. So, I'm here, foot's facing this way, and as I turn, that's when the punch comes out. And same thing as before, how I said about dumping out that cup of coffee. Turn your wrist over, that brings that shoulder up to guard your chin here from anything that's coming over here, as well as it gives you a little bit of extra torque and power. Because if you hit something straight like this, you'll get power out of it, but if you hit and twist into it, you get much more rotational power, and it transfers everything in your body through the punch. So when you're punching and when you're practicing punching, it's really important to visualize the transfer of energy as you move through the movement. So what this is doing is I'm here, I'm loaded up, and as I turn and load up and turn my hips over, I'm taking all my energy from my legs, from the ground, through that way. So I'm here, and as I turn, I come here. And it's that rotational movement that really gives you power and snap to your punch. So after the jab, you're gonna follow it up with the straight. So remember how I said again, your rope tied from your foot to your hand? It's the same thing with this hand now. So if I step forward with the jab or the 1 punch, I step forward, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to step the exact same distance with the back foot and follow it up with the 2 punch. So I step forward, and I step forward. The way my boxing coach explains it to me is after I step, I stomp that foot in. I'm here, my feet are really wide apart, I stomp that foot in. That kind of just gets you to turn your hips and snap them into place. So I'm here, I throw my jab, I take a step out, too wide, and I stomp that foot in, and this punch comes out, and you want to snap it out and snap it back in.
Can we see it the other way?
We go this way, too.
Yeah.
So here, I throw my jab out, I take a little half step, and I snap that one in. And that's the other important thing, is keep your hand up. Always have one hand on your face when the other one is out punching. Then you come back. So again, big thing I want to emphasize here is the movement of your hips. I'm always doing kind of this motion when I'm throwing punches, especially when I'm throwing from opposite hands. So I'm going 1, 2, you're going to see my hips moving back and forth. So before you get started with anything too complicated, practice that a few times. Practice that movement. Feel that transfer of weight as you turn your hips over and turn your toe into the ground. You kind of want to be pushing through, right? And then once you get comfortable with the punch itself, start by leading with the jab. So do the 1, 2. So go 1, 2, 1, 2. And you can do that anywhere, right? Like I got just a wide open space here. You can do it quick, you can do it slow. It's better to do it slow to start out with though. So you stop, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And just practice that movement. It looks kind of goofy, it might feel kind of goofy. But it's really important to be able to practice without always having a partner, because you won't always have a partner, you won't have a coach. And a lot of my practice has been just on my own. There's a lot of good stuff you can find on YouTube.
Now, why is it best to start slow with your punch?
So it's a good idea to start slow because you want to make sure that you're doing everything correctly, and you want to make sure that your form is, well, you want to get it as perfect as possible, right? So the biggest thing is a lot of guys, myself included, when I started boxing, I was focusing on, big swings and trying to get power and make a big sound when I hit the bag. But what I didn't realize was that I was only disadvantaging myself because my form wasn't there. So when you perfect the form, you don't need to put a lot of effort into your punches because of the way your body works. If you execute a punch correctly and with perfect form, the
power?
Yeah, the power will come naturally because of the form of the punch. So if you can think of it in terms like how a building has structure to it, it's the same thing with your punch. If you're throwing sloppy and you throw from here, or if you're just kind of keeping your elbow out or whatever you're doing, you're not going to have the structure behind the punch, and you're not going to have that flow of energy through your body and down through your legs. That's the most important thing. Again, so it's important to go slow, so that 1, you can work on your form, you can perfect it, and 2, you don't want to go too fast, because when you go too fast, you start getting sloppy and whatever. Your arms go everywhere, you're not paying attention. So start slow, like I said, and just do a simple count. 1, 2, 1, 2. It's easy as that. 1, 2, 1, 2. So when you get used to that, kind of play with it a little bit, and I'm going to do 2 minutes again. Usually I start with 2 minutes if I haven't been to the gym in a little bit, and I start to move to 3 to 5 minute rounds, depending on where your physical fitness level is at, but it's up to you. So put 2 minutes on your timer here, go back to your movement drill, get used to forward and backward, forward and backward. When you step forward, take a 1 shot, so jab as you step, and then follow it up with 2. So just from the side here, I'll show you again. If you're moving forward, again, pretend you're like a puppet with strings attached to your feet and your hands. And go 1, 2, 1, 2. Just get used to moving. 1, 2, 1, 2. So get used to moving in already. I'm not doing a whole lot, but I'm already, I can feel a little bit of sweat building up on the back of my neck. And it's just because boxing itself it's using your whole body again, right? Like I said, when you're throwing, you're not just throwing with your hand and your arm, it's your whole body engaging to do one movement. So yeah, work on that, and we'll do another round here after, and I'll show you guys just a couple defense things so that you're not just throwing punches. All right, so for our 4th round here, I'm just gonna cover some defensive techniques. So, it's kind of a cliche saying, but a good offense is a good defense. But that's very true. So defense in the simplest way, even from what I've just been showing you, is your guard. Guarding your face. So you want to keep your elbows in to guard your ribs, and you want to keep your hands up here so you can guard your head. Now, the simplest way to block a punch if someone throws it to the side of your head here is to pretend you're answering the phone. So someone throws a punch and ring, ring, I got a call. I put my hand to my ear, elbow comes up, and I block to the head. So if someone's throwing a punch at you and you got your guard up, it's important to keep your hands here at all times, because that means you're ready to defend. If someone throws a punch, answer the phone. I'm here, answer the phone. Now you see me kind of bobbing back and forth like this because another important defensive technique is called slipping. So in boxing, just as a little thing to help people visualize how to move, is they call it the center line. And now this line is a very important thing to remember. So remember how I talked about lining up your toe and your heel, how it kind of makes, if you can imagine, a line like this right through you. That line extends all the way up through your body. And now, you can imagine that line coming straight out the middle of your face. That is the center line. And now whoever has more control over that center line and who is able to avoid that center line when they're throwing punches, is going to be the one who has the best defense. So when I'm throwing my jab and my cross, they're both coming relatively straight down the center line. But if I'm throwing it at an opponent, if you guys are the opponent, I'm throwing it straight in your face. So what slipping does for that is, all it is moving your head off that center line. Your head's here, and then it's not. You don't have to move a lot. You just have to move enough. So the biggest thing in martial arts is it's a sport of millimeters, really, is what it is. You know, other sports, you're kind of distance from people, but with boxing and wrestling and all these kind of sports, it's really about inches and millimeters. So you really do have to keep that in mind. So the whole technique of slipping is, again, you have your hands up, right, in your guard position. And similar to how you threw your jab punch kind of naturally, as you kind of turn your hips over, your whole body's just kind of going to get used to this twisting motion back and forth. And the reason I told you earlier, back here so you can see my feet, to keep that back heel off the ground, is because if you plant it, you're not going to have any rotational ability here in your hips. You're going to be planted, and you're not going to be able to do anything. So you want to make sure you keep that back heel up so that you're able to turn your feet. And the turning of the feet is going to be crucial in the movement of your slipping and the movement of your blocking. So when I'm here, say someone throws a punch at me, and I know it's coming straight down the middle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip this way. And what you can imagine is you don't actually not going to do it, but you want to touch the shoulder to your opposite knee. So when I turn, my hips turn and my shoulder comes down. Now I'm just moving my hand down. You want to keep your hands up, and I'm moving it so you can see my shoulder coming down. And it doesn't have to be a sharp movement either, because again, the center line comes from the middle of your head, and all you need to do is move that few inches. So I'm imagining that line right through the middle of my head, and you can do this through, if you've probably seen it in boxing movies or whatever, where they have that rope tied from one end of the ring to the other, and they go under. That's that center line they're imagining. What they're doing is called bobbing, but we won't get into that right now. So just as for a basic slip, you're gonna have your guard up, like I said, and all you're gonna do is you're gonna transfer your weight, and you're gonna shift it back almost, and you twist your hips this way, and you're gonna try to touch this shoulder to this knee. So here, and you come down. Now your hands are still up, but you're still keeping your eyes forward on your opponent. And it's the same thing for the other way too. So if you want to slip the other way, same thing, you're in your stance. This shoulder is going to come to this knee. So I'm here, and I slip down. You see how my back foot kind of turned forward from here, turn down. And now all my weight is loaded up on this foot. So you want to kind of keep that in mind when you're moving around, when you're throwing punches, where your weight is loaded. So right now, as I lean forward, a lot more of my weight, probably 80% of it, is on my front foot, and maybe 20% of it is on my back foot. So I have that kind of, that potential right here in this foot, and as I spring back, all of it comes back over to my middle. So for me, what really helped me with my slipping and things like that was kind of just being aware of where my weight is centered. If you can imagine yourself as, you see those carousel rides at the fair, where it's like a horse and they have a pole in the middle of them, and you ride the horse and it goes up and down like this. Imagine that's you instead. So imagine you have a pole coming out of the middle of you, and you want to stay over that pole. You want that pole to be your center of balance, and that's the point that you turn around. So if I'm here, again slipping, I'm turning around that pole like this. It's this movement. And you turn, and you turn. So any way you're moving, make sure you're keeping yourself around that center of arc. And so what you want to do is start to incorporate these movements into your punching. Now this is a lot of information for one video. I'd encourage you guys to look into it more if you're interested, but just for basics, when you throw a jab, say, you can throw your head off the center line. Now I was throwing it like this before, or you can take your head off that line. Now not only does that protect your face as well, now you have that just extra layer of active defense there. So as you throw your punch, head comes off the other way as you throw your other punch. So just movements you can do to practice this too, even is like, I saw one video where these two kids were doing this, and they'd stand straight on, and they would take one hand, and they would touch to this toe. They would come up, and touch down towards this toe, and touch down towards this toe. So all that's doing is getting used to that movement of that shoulder coming down towards this knee. So again, if I incorporate that back, get back in my stance, I'm here, hands are up, and all I'm doing is bringing that shoulder down towards my knee. And so you can practice that in your movement too. So if I'm moving around, like if I actually did get out my water bottle this time, I put my water bottle here, and I'm moving around in a circle. I can practice move and slip. Get back up, come back around this way. I can step this way and slip. Get used to just kind of that back and forth movement. Here, slip, and then start to incorporate punches into that. So I'm here, slip, bang. I'm here, slip as I punch, down, punch. So it's kind of just getting used to that movement, and it's really strange because side-to-side lateral movement is not really something super natural for us because we're used to, running forward. We're used to, all of our weight coming in a linear direction and all of our power moving in that linear direction. This is similar, but now we're incorporating side-to-side movements as well. So again, for your defense, just these two little things that I've shared with you is keep those hands up. If someone throws a punch to the side of your head, answer the phone. Block like that. Someone throws a punch to the side of your ribs, just bend over. Block with your ribs or with your elbows over your ribs. If you need to slip a punch, same thing, slip, shoulder to your knee, remember that. Down and down. So those are just a few things you can add in between punches, during punches, before and after. It's really a game of spatial negotiation, if that makes any sense. Similar to chess, how the person who controls the center of the board is the one who will most likely win the match. You have a center between you and your opponent, and you want to control as much of that as possible, and you want to be in charge of where you are moving. You do not ever want to let your opponent be in charge of where you're going. The same is true for life too, really. You always want to be sure that you know exactly where you're stepping and why you're stepping. So before you make any steps, make sure you know why you're taking that step. So for the next 2 rounds, all I'm going to get you guys to do is set a timer and get used to moving, get used to go back, practice 1, 2, but after, incorporate a defensive move after it. So throw 1, 2, and then just slip. Then go back to movement. Move forward, move backward, side to side, throw 1, 2, and slip. Just get used to that. Throw a series of punches. It can be 2, it can be even just 1, and slip. Depending on the situation you want to use it for. But do that, and always, 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 after you throw something, have a way out. Because you can bet that if I throw something at my opponent, right now I'm throwing at nothing, but if I have a real opponent, as soon as I throw something, you know that he's looking for something to throw back. He sees my hand is out, he sees my weight is on my front foot. He's going to notice that if he's an experienced boxer. He's going to be firing back. So you want to make sure that immediately you have a way out, and you have a way to defend yourself. So again, that's where keeping your hands up is important. That's where slipping is important. And there's a whole series of other moves that you can learn as well, but we won't get into that. So again, next 2 minutes, just set the timer, move around, get comfortable with your movement, get comfortable throwing punches. Remember the strings tied to your hands and your feet. Punch, 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 move, move, slip, slip, do what you gotta do. So if you're really interested in this, I really recommend you look up on YouTube. Marvin Cook is a really good YouTuber. He's a boxer. There's a bunch of other really good channels, and you can learn a lot from YouTube. So yeah, really encourage you guys to kind of look into this yourselves. And once you finish all this up, make sure you get a nice little stretch in. That's very important. My legs are kind of sore right now because I didn't do very much stretching last night after my workout. But yeah, that's one of the most important things. Make sure, again, drink some water. And well, I hope everyone has a good week and stay safe.